say, let's suppose it's multi-intent, right?
For the next important discussion topic, we know that the new normal is the new norm which is being there. We are the way we commute, we talk, we communicate, or we do anything right now has been changed because of the current conditions of the pandemic which is going on. So definitely it has also affected the way the communication is happening, the digital transformation it is happening. And definitely when we talk about digital, the role of language technology has actually emerged on a further in a different scale and a different manner. And so the next session, which is on the COVID-19, a challenge and opportunity to the Indian language technology service industry, we have the discussions around that area. The chairperson for the session is Ms. Simi Chaudhary. She is an economic advisor and group coordinator, Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. Welcome, ma'am, on behalf of FICCI and everybody. Thank you for joining in. We have the panelists, which is Ms. Vidushi Kapoor, CEO and co-founder Process9, Mr. Jav Moore, Director Taos, Dr. Shailendra Mohan, Secretary, Linguistic Society of India, Mr. Radhakrisha, Founder and CEO, Vokal, India, and the moderator for the session is Mr. Ramesh Loghanathan, Professor, IIIT-Hyderabad. I would request all the panelists to kindly switch on their videos and keep themselves on mute whenever your turn comes in. Please carry on with the discussions. And you would have had a chance to hear something in the first session, and you know there's a task which needs to be taken forward. This is a small announcement to be made, especially for the panelists and the moderator. Ms. Chaudhary, ma'am has to leave a little early, so maybe she would, after a round of introductions with everybody, she will deliver her opening remarks and maybe present her thoughts during the discussion, and then she would have to leave a little early. So this is just to make a little announcement before we start up with the session. So good luck, and we really look forward to our discussions. My team has just informed me we have more than 418 people who are live right now. So over to you, Mr. Loghanathan, for carrying forward the discussions.
Yes, Anika. So I'm very happy to be here at this session. I think the topic is very, very relevant. COVID-19 pandemic, and it has changed everything around. Some real, some imagined, but the reality is what it is. We live in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's quite some paranoia around, and of course a lot of caution and precaution that needs to be taken. And so the way we communicate is changing. Also, in many ways, the way we communicate is changing. There's a lot more that needs to be done online. Online, we often forget the like they say, the Bharat, the larger part of India that's not English literate. And and most of them have. I mean, I know many of my elder aunts and uncles that are not even comfortable with English, very, very, very comfortably using WhatsApp these days. And WhatsApp is an entry into digital apps that they can now very easily move into, and they can start transacting, doing things using the mobile phones, given that WhatsApp has brought that digital literacy that's required for such things. Now, which means that, like, if they're not familiar or comfortable with English, they need to transact with the systems in Indian languages, since you don't have the luxury of going to a place or going to an office or a business, wherever you need to conduct some business, conduct some transaction. Since you can't go there, and phone may not always be an option, and there are apps and other web-based interfaces. So I think the significance of Indian languages becomes much more important, especially for transactions and information access, since you can't go to places. I think that's one. The need has always been there to be able to kind of communicate with systems and organizations in Indian languages. If anything, it's got amplified by the whole pandemic that has driven us a little physically far apart. And so you can't go to places that you could easily go earlier. And so I think the importance of the challenge has become that much bigger. So I think that's what we're going to be discussing in the next 15 minutes or so. Like Sarika introduced, there's a fantastic panel. I mean, we have a company that's been for a long time in the space of trying to localize content, leverage technology to localize content more quickly. We have an organization that's dealing with monetizing data, language data specifically. Taos, I think that's an interesting perspective, which through Bahubhashak and such. Now we are trying to do the same thing in the Indian language mission as well. And then we have the Linguistic Society. Linguistics is at the core. So it'll be interesting to see like the intersection of where does linguistics intersect, and is there anything that they can do to amplify or accelerate this whole process of Indian language solutions. And then of course we have Vokal that's been very actively present in the Indian language space. especially in the Q&A systems, which is again a key part of what is required in the pandemic-driven world. You need to interact with systems. You need to get information, you need to perform operations. So I think there's a fantastic perspective. So before we get into the panel, let me invite the chairperson, Ms. Simi Chowdhury, to share Madam's opening remarks. Madam?
Namaste. First of all, a big thank you to FICCI for arranging Bhashantara. And as Abhishek Singhji was just saying in the previous session, that it is a very meaningful platform and a very relevant one at this juncture that provides us an opportunity to discuss and deliberate how we should go about enriching our strategies and government's initiatives for the natural language processing technology. And my apologies that I would not be able to hear all the panelists as they talk here today, and I will not be able to be an active participant in the discussion that flows in the session. But Rameshji, I would definitely want to catch up with the proceedings of the session subsequently. But there's a parallel engagement, so I would have to withdraw after the opening remarks, but it is an opportunity missed for me, and I'm sure I would have got even wiser as the head of the Technology Development for Indian Languages and the NLTM in the Ministry of Electronics and IT after hearing the thoughts that take place over here. But I would definitely take stock of what has been discussed, what have been the main recommendations or the main points or the concerns that have been raised by both the panelists as well as the participants, if there are any that emerge after the session. So thank you, Rameshji, for giving me this opportunity. And as we all are aware, this is a topic of great relevance too for us. COVID-19 pandemic has affected our lives in many ways. We are all fighting this challenge and we are fighting it real hard, right from the medical domain to the education domain and to every domain that affects our life. We have adapted ourselves with the help of technology. That has been a very critical tool as a weapon rather for us in fighting this pandemic. And this has got the focus on Indic language technologies even more and much more than ever before. Digital inclusiveness in our country requires speech interaction with the technology solutions. The demand for translation today has increased in fields like medicine, the pharmaceuticals, life sciences, education, e-commerce, public health announcements, and all COVID-related contents. So this demand has multiplied manyfold due to the pandemic. And language technology, we all agree, plays an important role in the localization of the content. The education system to entertainment, to mapping, to medicine, everything requires a robust localization for last mile delivery. And if content is available to an individual in their natural language, this only helps in spreading more awareness, preparing us more in combating the pandemic. Today, the natural language processing is not just an agenda or something desirable, but it is a necessity and a requirement. The natural language technology mission of the Government of India is our booster to the technology development for natural language processing and an ecosystem building approach in this domain. Targeting Indic languages is our strategy to take it forward. We are supporting data creation to infrastructure building, to development, to deployment of our research under TDIL program, and our esteemed institutions are taking it from the lab to actually. We are creating an environment that is suitable for growth of natural language processing that is related to the technological innovations taking place in this domain in India. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has been conducting and facilitating research and supporting it as well in this direction for the last 15 years under the TDIL program. We are launching the natural language translation missions shortly to harness the natural language using artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies and techniques to overcome the language barrier and bridge the language divide for a more meaningful digital inclusion through the Bahubhashak ICT platform that will leverage all the developed technologies to enable speech-to-speech machine translation for Indian languages and also natural language technology processing services. This will catalyze the market by aggregation of stakeholders and development of an ecosystem rather than silos for startups in this area. Digital technology has proven to be a boon during this epidemic to deliver justice, to deliver education, to disseminate information right at the doorstep of people by leveraging the technology and the interventions or the e-governance solutions that are available today. Spoken Tutorial Initiative under the Ministry of HRD's ICT mission that provides the educational content dubbed in Indian languages, and thus it promotes the IT literacy for education. Multilingual content proliferation in domains of agriculture, health, education, social welfare, energy, and e-governance, and many other large-scale initiatives by both the public and the private entities. They're all working together towards building an ICT-based knowledge society. Human-like artificial intelligence capabilities are now getting researched, which make the AI model develop inferencing abilities as well. The Bahubhashak ICT platform will enable users to watch and read content using voice-based translation with subtitling technologies in the desired language and will open new avenues for employment. Voice-based search and voice-based intelligent assistance in various domains are also under our purview of the mission goals. The government to citizen outreach will be broad-based through localization of websites in 22 Indian languages by using this platform under the mission of the government. The new normal today is digital first, and multilingual support on ICT platforms will localize the internet in Indian languages. And this is the key to percolate the use of digital technology in all domains, and thus to increase the participation of masses in the digital economy. In fact, under the mission, our target is to create a really meaningful One India by generating technological solutions which will make it like a Bahubhashya sitting next to every citizen of the country, wherein the massive resources that are available on the internet, the wealth of knowledge that is today available across various domains in the internet is all available to a citizen in their regional language or their natural language, so that the digital inclusion is meaningful, the digital divide and the language barrier are all taken care of. And for this, we are planning to create this ecosystem which will have a Team India approach with participation from industry, from the academia, from startups, from the government at all levels, be it the central government or the state government, and participation citizens in general, to create a single sign-on facility with the use of data analytics and other emerging technologies. Some kind of personalized services be created for every stakeholder in the domain through the platform that we are envisaging under the mission. And my call for action to all of you today is to render your cooperation and support to the government in institutionalizing this mission, devising appropriate strategies to implement it, and really achieving One India in a meaningful manner by bridging the language divide. I will not take much more time, and I would leave the floor open to the moderator and the panelists, and all my best wishes for a very successful and outcome-oriented session. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Mr. Loghanathan, you're on mute.
Sorry. I was saying thank you so much, ma'am. We'll work with Sarika and make sure the proceedings of this session reaches you as well. Thank you. I think under your leadership now, we are actively involved with Bahubhashak project here at IIIT along with CDAC and IIT-Madras. I think that's a nice initiative with so much happening in the last 15 years around language research. I think that's an initiative to take it that last mile. I think that's where we are stuck for many years. It's almost there, but we don't get it out there as a solution. So hopefully Bahubhashak will help. I think the program design is very good. I'm quite excited that that's happening now. So we look forward to it. Thank you so much, ma'am, for all your support. So now just kind of switching tracks a little, I would like to get to the topic at hand in terms of just deliberating on what does it mean for Indian language solutions post-pandemic. So just to set the stage, I would request each of the panelists to share some their initial opening comments, quick introduction to themselves, but that's on one facet each. So let me first request Vidushi Kapoor, the CEO and co-founder of Process9, a language kind of translation solution for content and websites and such. So I'd like you to touch upon, after introducing the company itself, like in the next few minutes, just share your thoughts on like if you're seeing any uptake and demand for content localization now, post-pandemic. So Vidushi, a quick introduction to Process9, and then your thoughts on if you're seeing any uptake on local language solutions.
Thank you, Ramesh sir. Hello, everybody. A bit about Process9 first. So we are a language technology company, and through homegrown technology, we are building tools and solutions to increase the scalability and efficiency in the translation and localization process. So we recently launched a platform called Moxveda, through which we have made website translation and app translation a DIY process. So anyone can come and do it yourself through a simple 3 to 4 step process. Anyone who has a website or an app can come and translate it into any language. In addition to that, we have also launched a neural machine translation API that is MoxWave that does automated translations for Indian languages. So these technologies are 100% made in India, and they're made for the world. And they can be used by large enterprises, MSMEs, startups, translation companies, anyone who is looking to add speed and scalability and reduce their costs in the translation process. Now coming to the demand uptake post-COVID, I think we have experienced and are also expecting in the next few months to see a quantum jump in the demand for local language content consumption and creation. COVID has given a huge push, as Simi ma'am also said, and to changing language technology or the content requirement in Indian language from a good to have to a must have. It has become a necessity now. So previously, it used to be the big boys club or the large enterprises who used to look at adding languages to their apps and websites as, a branding exercise or something good to have. But today, having a digital presence has become, it has become essential. Digital presence is real presence. You don't really have physical shops anymore. So imagine your, corner kirana store. If he has to come digital, is he going to come digital in English? No, has to come online in local language. So whatever platform he chooses to create his digital presence, whether it is Dukaan, whether it is Now Floats, whether it is Shopify, that platform needs to speak his language. His entire store will be in his language. His operations will be in his language. So that from that point itself, the need for local language is going to increase. So it is the necessity hierarchy, which used to be roti, kapra, makan. Then we added internet. So now, according to us, it is going to be roti, kapra, makan, internet, and local language.
So absolutely, Vidushi. I think like the whole the fact that we've democratized network access is a fantastic thing. But if you don't get the services on the network cannot be just about movies and browsing. I mean, like it has to be if you don't get the right services through the network that is now democratized, then the opportunity is lost. You're right. I think that's very essential. So presenting another view is like, Vokal. So would request the founder, Aprameya Radhakrisha, to briefly introduce Vokal, and then just would like you to reflect upon, you are more into transaction systems, right? Specific information access, Q&A systems and transaction systems. Are you seeing the same thing? Have you also been noticing any uptake in requests for these systems in transaction systems as well? Information access is one thing. But then also transaction systems. So quickly introduce Vokal and then share your thoughts on what you're seeing in the last 7-8 months. Aprameya.
Thanks a lot. So we run two platforms. One is called Vokal, and another is called Coup. Right. So Vokal is more a question answer platform, and Co is a microblogging platform for daily expression from people, right? So these are the two platforms that we run. And as far as the demand for consumption of content in local language goes, it's been an inherent need, right? Nobody's really produced that content ever before. One solution to the whole localization is, okay, can we translate, which Vidushi and team and many other companies like us are focusing on. What we focus on is, basically enable tools for you to express and create content in local language itself, right? So on Vokal, basically, stats from Google says, more than 40% of all search queries on Google in India is voice, right? And most of that voice query is actually in local languages. So any new user who's coming onto the internet wants to use the internet like they would use, like they would talk to any other person. So they're not used to searching for keywords, right? They're used to asking a full-length question and getting back a full-length answer for it, and not like going through various links to research, self-research, answers and get the right answer, right? That's not what they're requiring. When I ask, how do I become an IAS officer? The answer should be from an IAS officer telling me how they became an IAS officer, right? And it's not, getting redirected to a website which talks about how to prepare for IAS, right? So the expectations, the experiences are totally different, right? So on both our apps, Vokal and Co, we've kind of, built experiences apart from just making available content in local language. The whole experience is also made for local language users, right? Which means, instead of a pop-up telling you about the app, we actually have a audio message that pops up and keeps playing for people to understand what they need to do on that screen, right? For an English language user, you would just pop up and they would read it and then they would go and follow the instructions. For Indian language users, it's almost like a voice telling you what to do while you're holding the app in your hand, right? So while translation is important, while creation of content is important, it is also important to understand the offline experiences and expectations of the new users, and also adopt and build technology. So you can't just build technology like you would build for the English user. You should also adopt experiences, right? And a couple more things. The talent that is required to build. I think the demand for technology in local languages is so high. The biggest challenge that we have is the talent required to build all these systems, right? Whether it's NLP, whether it's anything else. So, sir, a request to you is push all your students to get into technology for Indian languages, right? And tell them to apply to us, and we'll be happy to get them on board and give them challenging problems, right? Because what we are trying to do is build the whole ecosystem that has been built for English over the last 25, 30 years of internet in a very short period of time, right? So what is to be done is very easy to say, but actually doing it to a world-class level is a challenge that we all need to solve as well. Can't hear you.
Mutes itself. So absolutely, Aprameya. I think you're right. It's the intent is there and the need is there. Just that not enough is happening, and definitely not happening fast enough. Students, yes, happy to chat offline, but then they go where the opportunity is. Unfortunately, we can't. Many of them do stick. I mean, you're referring to that. We have one of the best language technology research groups in the country. But then again, so they go where they go. But happy to chat with both you and Vidushi later to see, from the research group, definitely we can help. So that's going to be one of the points I would like to discuss just a little bit. Before that, let me just give opening comments from the other two speakers as well. Would now request Meer, Director of Taos. Very interesting that there's the whole data monetization is the focus of Taos. So would just like you to share, after introducing Taos briefly, sir, would like you to share your perspectives on lessons learned from public data sets. We were struggling with that here in India. If you look at our language technology mission, the corpora and all that, we are just kind of all kinds of issues we are facing. We'd just like you to share about how was that experience creating those data sets in Europe. Sir?
Yes, thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this panel. Perhaps it's helpful to share with you a very brief introduction of Taos. I can imagine we're not so well known in India, but we started in 2005 as a think tank for the global translation industry. Initially just creating a platform for the early adopters of machine translation to meet, to talk to each other. In those days, we had the first generation of data-driven machine translation technology, the statistical engines, and there was already a need for data to get these machines to work better, to teach them to translate better in all the different languages. So as a spin-off from our think tank, we started collecting data, language data, source and target sentences, already in 2008. So we built up a very large repository of language data, currently around 35 billion words and 600 language pairs. And then the question was, what has COVID really done to the world? But I would recall everybody here also of the revolution in machine translation itself, which happened just before that, maybe a little longer before that, 3-4 years ago. The emergence of neural machine translation has made a big difference, has had a big impact on the world of machine translation, because suddenly we saw the quality improving a lot. The quality of machine translation made a real jump. Which made the need for data even bigger, because people found out that customizing these engines was really making a big difference in quality. So the need for domain-specific data, the need for more data, even in high-resource languages, but definitely the need for data in low-resource languages surged suddenly, and so. At Taos, we were happy to get funding from the European Union to develop a new incarnation of our data cloud, basically changing the business model behind the data cloud and creating a market, bringing the demand and supply together in a marketplace for data. So that's where we're at the moment. And driven by the demand for data and for instance, low resource, I always find that a little a strange word, actually, but that's how everybody refers to it, low resource languages. And one big example, of course, is from a global perspective, the Indic languages. Our customers started driving Taos to develop corpora in the Indian languages. So that's what we've been busy with doing in the past 1.5 years. And we're making this data, these corpora, available through our marketplace. So that's a quick sort of introduction of Taos. We see the demand growing very quickly, not just because of COVID-19, but of course because of all the breakthroughs in the technology side in neural networks. You're muted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot more is possible now, just on a simple mobile device. So I think you're right. I think the technology is more ready for these solutions, and also technology also has matured in the recent years. So hopefully we'll see more of it coming mainstream. We'll come back in a little bit to also the data challenge for language technology. But before that, we'd like to get the other perspective that we have on the panel as well, which is linguistics. It's at the core. Kind of understand the language models and the language structures, and is at this core, at the core of language technologies. So would request Dr. Shailendra Mohan from Linguistic Society just to share, introduce the society briefly, but also share your thoughts on understanding the language models and how do linguistics connect with technologies. Is that happening enough? We are fortunate to have 2 linguists in our research center itself. but I don't see much interaction outside. So I just want to get your views on like how much of interaction is happening between the linguists and the language technologists. So Dr. Shailendra?
Yeah, thank you, FICCI, for inviting me to this panel, and I'll be sharing my thoughts and I will learn from the panel. I'm Shailendra Mohan. I'm Secretary Linguistic Society of India and also a faculty member at Deccan College Postgraduate and Research Institute. Primarily, we work on lesser known languages, and our task is to create content in these in lesser known languages. Personally, I am working on Nihali, a language isolate, and as well as a Munda language called Kurku, in which, so looking at the interface between language and industry, we do develop computational linguistics as a course, and that courses are running all over India, and perhaps the most, the CDAC as well as the Google and others are employing linguists to understand the language systems. Recently, because I am a field linguist and work on the languages of India, especially in lesser known languages, I came with recently a app that has been developed by Fitfinger, which is called a field recorder. And this is an app which comes around 10 to 15 euros. And if your informant, suppose if a person I am working is a Kurku speaker, he has a, definitely everyone has a Chinese mobile or anyone. And if he can download that and record his voices and send through the WhatsApp messages, a good amount of creation of Indian languages can be done. And I have talked to many speech technologists. They told me that the accuracy of these apps are perhaps 50 to 60%. So if in future, if we can create an apps which can be up 70 to 80%, a whole amount of localization of these English-centric global mass communication will come to a localized one. So my take would be that the industry should develop these kind of, so that we can get the data directly from the informant or the language speakers, and then accordingly model your e-commerce or whatever in these post-COVID situations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think that's, yes, I think we need to get more of the solutions. While on that topic, I would request Yap to share, Yap and Meer to share one unique difference between, like, say, at least European countries and India is like most of the countries in Europe or many across the world, there are very few countries where they are inherently multilingual, with the business language being one predominant language and often not a local language, like in India. English is the predominant business language. Now, we tried recently to talk to the local university, which has all the engineering colleges in the state, about 250 colleges, and at least half of them are in tier 2 small towns. So we asked them saying, would you want to get NPTEL courses translated to Telugu, the local language? And they said, no, most of the students don't have a problem. They're okay with English. Now, that was surprising. Now, I just want to hear your views, sir, on like any thoughts or observations. Have you seen other multilingual societies where there's one predominant language? How does the technology and solutions in the lesser used languages for business, at least, evolve?
Well, no, there's, I think in Europe, I mean, people are perhaps willing to speak another language if they can, but there is still a great demand for everybody to be able to speak their own language, their local, you know, their native language, and be able to do business, to do any sort of consult online or to buy their things online. And you know, it's common knowledge that people are, what do they say, 4 times more likely to purchase something from the web if it's available in their local language. So the commitment that the European Commission has made to all the member states from the outset is to make all content available in the native languages of the European citizens, which is 24 languages. So there has been always a lot of funding available from European Commission to develop the language technology and to support this strategy, this policy, and we as a company headquartered in Amsterdam in the European Union have always been a beneficiary of that strategy, of that policy as well. As I mentioned briefly, the the marketplace that we're now developing as a new kind of layer or incarnation on top of our data cloud is also a funded project by the European Union under the Connecting European Facility program, the CEF program. It's interesting in this respect that this program covers a much broader kind of infrastructure scope. So it's I believe there's something like €1 billion of funding in this program, but it includes things like roads and bandwidth. So all barriers to connecting European citizens and language technology, and so it's part of the same kind of Connecting European Facility program. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or your thoughts to some extent. You're muted.
This thing, I mean, it mutes by itself, so I don't realize that it's been muting. So India has this unique challenge. I mean, like most people can manage with English. So that the business drivers to create local technology solutions are not as strong. That brings to the next question. I would like to pose this to Vidushi and Aprameya. Why? I mean, WhatsApp. I mean, it's amazing to see how much WhatsApp is being used by those that are like not at all comfortable with technology, not at all familiar with English, and even in the local language, they're not tech savvy per se. I mean, like they work with images and such, and like, but not really actually type much stuff. And in spite of that, the Indian language, actual kind of Indian language apps or technologies or services available in the Indian language is still very, very small. Now, what is your take on it? I mean, like, why do you think, are there technology barriers to it, adoption? Or is it just pure market economics that there are not enough economic drivers that need the adoption? Either of you or both of you, please.
Yeah, so I'll take that. So WhatsApp is a close friend network, right? So the people who you are interacting with on a high frequency basis are people that you know well, right? Family and friends. So even if you make a mistake, right, you're totally pardoned. So they will attempt to, type in local language or whatever else. So in a public domain, right, to post publicly, they might not do it at a higher frequency. These are all one-to-one communication or a closed group communication where they can get away. It might be college friends, it might be family, it might be one-on-one messages with friends. So hence the willingness to try and communicate in local language is much higher, right? So that is one reason why WhatsApp is being able to help people communicate more in local language, right? So nobody's worried. Second is, WhatsApp for the language speakers is less about only communication and more about sharing. So there's a lot of local language content that is being created somewhere else, but do the rounds of WhatsApp. So to communicate with somebody I know, you don't really have to create on WhatsApp. You can just take content and forward it, and it's like I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just saying, but looking at it as a stepping stone. I mean, WhatsApp, you're right. I mean, it's coming for a different purpose and different reason. But having made its entry into kind of a common non-tech savvy, non-English savvy person's life,
yeah,
why are the other solutions not coming in? I mean, now that you got the person kind of comfortable with the phone, at least, why are other solutions not coming in? Are there any impediments, or is it just a demand supply?
No, so let's just take WhatsApp. Look, let's say your question is, why isn't there a Indian language WhatsApp only?
Right? No, not just that. I mean, given that like the people are comfortable with mobile-based apps, even if it's WhatsApp primarily, why are other apps not coming up? I mean, if you take 5 years back, not enough people were on mobile devices, but that's not the case anymore. So why are not enough Indian local language apps coming up?
Well, we have to. So I wouldn't agree that there aren't too many, but you have to adopt, right? One is, it's a whole ecosystem that will make an app work, right? One, the entrepreneur has to believe that this space is for the future, right? When, an Indian entrepreneur looks at, okay, should I build for the English audience, which is already paying enough money, transacting online, should I give them a better experience and make money today versus build an experience and, hopefully make money in the future? Most entrepreneurs want to build for today, right? So that is one thing, right? And because the money is in the English audience today in India, even the investors who are investing, would prefer a place where money is being made today, right? So it will require a certain concentrated effort over a period of time to show that, audiences can be garnered by focusing on Indian language first, and money can be made by focusing on Indian language first. So with that, you will see more apps coming up, right, for all use cases. So we do Q&A and we do microblogging. So one is like Quora, one is like Twitter with a local essence put in. And, there will be further apps that will come in, I'm sure, based on, insights that we get from offline behavior of the new audience.
So you're right. I mean, like the commercial sense is unfortunately a large driver. I mean, if there are not enough people asking for it, but that's where the opportunity for technology players such as both of you come into play, where you can abstract it out a little. So, Vidushi, in your experience, if you have to abstract this out, like Aprameya said, if a startup has to invest or a company has to invest its time and effort, they'll focus on English because there's more immediate, much larger pool and an immediate revenue source available. But if you have to say technology makes it easy to make the same service available in another language without them having to do much. Now, that's one way to go. I mean, it can abstract this out so that they don't have to invest much, but they still get the local language solution available. Now, what, in your view, I'm sure you've been working with the whole fraternity, whether it is like the likes of MIT and FICCI Language Tech Group or research institutions. Are there any impediments? Why is it not happening? I mean, like, why are such solutions not coming that can abstract this out?
See, I think the solutions are coming in. As Aprameya himself is
why are not enough solutions coming out? Okay, you're right, solutions are coming out. Why are not enough of them coming out or getting used?
So just, the question that you had asked previously, I'd like to take 2 minutes to address that. There is still the perception, and I think that perception is really breaking, that Indian languages, you can't make much money in it. If you're investing in Indian languages, it's not really something that you will make money in today, maybe, a few years down the line. I'll take a small example. You see, e-commerce today, the 4 biggest players in e-commerce in India, that's Flipkart, Amazon, Paytm, Snapdeal. All 4 have implemented Indian languages to some sort. They're not really doing just lip service to it, but to some degree or other, they've all invested, very well in Indian languages. And if we just see last month's Diwali sales that happened, the numbers that these platforms saw was incredible. More than 50% of the sales were coming from tier 3 cities and beyond. For Flipkart, the deliveries rose 10x. And this is after, the demand that has gone down, or an economy that has depressed due to COVID and even before COVID. So this is, language has played a very big role here. So we cannot really say that investing in language today is going to reap you benefits, 5 years down the line. That is changing. And people, there are many startups that realize that when I go live, when I launch, I must launch in Indian languages. It's not an afterthought. Some amount of adoption challenges could be faced by users because, again, as a premise, it's a matter of adopting your product or adapting your product for them. Just simply converting the language may not always be enough. You have to help the user come onto the internet. If internet in Indian languages or computing in Indian languages is enforced a lot more in the educational years in schooling, like Hindi typing or Tamil typing is taught in school as opposed to focusing only on English typing, then of course adoption is going to become a lot easier. But adding languages and adding, more interfaces, like you're training them, you're guiding them, you're helping them, that is going to really that is making an effort and it's making an impact. Sorry. So I would not really agree to the fact that there's not enough happening.
Okay, I mean, we just I mean, both of you live that world, right? So if somebody is looking at Indian language learning, they might come to, you and like, so you see that world all the time. If I look at it from outside, I can look at it from, like, say, even if I look at it just from preparedness standpoint, the number of companies that come to us asking for local language technology is much, much lesser than companies that come to us asking for like either like any kind of language technology solutions around English. Now, so, I mean, you're right, like you said, I mean, if people are not even comfortable typing in Tamil or Telugu or Hindi, I mean, how would they? So the English comes very, very quickly and very early on, unfortunately. But like recently, one of our startups, is Bikai, they got into YC early this year and raised a very good round of funding. And in less than a year since they started, they went into, she discovered an opportunity, it's one of her alum, in the looking at a family business. She was just home and then like for some time, and they have a grocery store, and she saw that like they were getting orders on WhatsApp. I mean, like somebody said, okay, just get me 1 kg of oil and something. And then they send somebody and then deliver it and come. Now, she saw there's an opportunity. Why should you just do it? Why can't you browse what is there and do it? So they've made a very quick WhatsApp e-commerce solution. And they're doing very well. I mean, they're scaling like crazy. And the Y Combinator and the funding that came with it has only further accelerated the process. Now, I didn't check with them. I mean, if I was talking, I was thinking I should ping her and see like if they do it in, because they based or started in MP, if they have it in Hindi or not. Now, you'd think something like that. I mean, I see my mother who cannot operate a phone, call the grocery store nearby on the phone, tell, can you send this? Now, she knows only Tamil. Now, if it's available in Tamil, I'm now wondering, like, she's 77, 78 years old, if she would kind of do WhatsApp e-commerce in Tamil. Now, so I think there are the masses that don't know English and can only, but they seem marginalized today. So that's what I was trying to get to. I mean, why is the business environment not trying to tap into them? So I don't know if you have any thoughts, since you see a lot of end organizations that are adopting technology. If you have any thoughts, or even Yap or Shailendra sir.
Can I speak on this?
Yes, please, Dr. Shailendra, yes.
So, because you do not offer, that's why you do not get. So that's what I will take it like that, because if you start offering in Indian languages, and I would say that because India has 1500 languages and others, and it is very difficult for anyone to create so much of resources. So what I think that if WhatsApp or a Facebook or others, if interfaces are developed in Indian languages with the translation tools, perhaps that would be a more mean that e-commerce and other things can be. Suppose if there is a Amazon or a Flipkart which is offering with a translate into, and these language solutions, I think in that sense, definitely the business will grow. And because there are no choices, hence people are not using in smaller towns or even in villages and others. So most of the market is coming from cities because you are offering only a very less. Perhaps that will I take into it.
Yeah.
Please, go ahead.
Just to throw in this comment again, that what people don't realize maybe is the importance of the data. That's of course a core topic of this conference here, but it's not simply a matter of using an off-the-shelf machine translation technology. What we hear back again and again is that it's the machine translation is a simple sum of algorithms and data, but of the two, the data is much more important than the algorithm. So to develop tools and apps for the many different languages in India is a real data challenge, because if the data is not available to make these apps and tools and websites available in all the different languages, then it's very hard for any startup to, where do they start? Just downloading the algorithms, the technologies is not sufficient. They need access to data. And I very much like the comment earlier about, the field recorder. that Shailendra made there, because the other thing that we're learning now is the challenge of getting organically grown data. There's traditionally there is an approach of striving for linguistic perfection in all the applications and tools that we're building, but it's much more important these days to speak the language of the people. So for that purpose, you need to really harvest, collect the data of the people, the language that the people speak, and that makes the challenge even harder, to get the natural kind of language that people understand.
No, absolutely. I think yeah, those are all good comments. I mean, especially on the data, part. I know we've been in conversations. IT and FICCI has been part of those conversations as well, to say how to make some of this. I mean, today, almost every startup I know that's in the language technology space collects the data they need with themselves. I'm sure Vidushi and Aprameya will agree. It doesn't make life easy. With so much work happening, every research institution looking at language technology, collecting their own corpora, but there's no, I mean, just getting it publicly available is a big challenge. And I know Bhashak is trying to solve it a little bit now, and hopefully in the next year or so we'll get some solutions. But just in the last 30 seconds to a minute that we have, Vidushi and Aprameya, if you can quickly touch upon that in terms of what would help accelerate, like at least a technology startup's journey. I mean, like somebody using your technology, for them it's not an issue, but building the technology like you are, what do you think will help if, from my ministry standpoint or anybody else from a facilitation?
I think publicly available dictionary. So every time, every time we pick up a new language to launch in, we end up, finally coming down to, okay, we need a dictionary of words that we will learn from, right? To be able to predict a language, whether while it's typing or understanding a language without actually a person reading it, you finally boil down to, okay, do I have a large enough dictionary of words which I can program on top of, right? So, for a small company which wants to, basically come and solve some of the language problems, technology problems that we have, it will almost become impossible. On both our platforms, fortunately, we have users producing enough and more language content which we use as data. But that itself, is a time-consuming effort, right? So I think publicly making available, a dictionary which can be used by engineers to build on top of, so that anybody who's building language technology can use it. I think that'll be a great thing.
I agree. Data is gold for any of these technologies to work, and we actually personally took the time to curate and build all the data, and all the corpus that we use to build our neural machine translation APIs. So good quality data, if it can be made available, which already, IT is working towards making it available, is going to be a fantastic boost for all of us.
No, absolutely. I think that's something we need to have. I'm relatively new to this world. I've been engaged on the IT and the Indian language side only for the last 3-4 years. But I've seen this data being discussed in every forum, every meeting, every committee or a panel. And I know Bhashak, one of the aspects of Bhashak is to make that available more easily, but I think it's much harder. I mean, it's much easier said than done. But I hopefully will. Yes. I mean, you have anything to add?
Just one thought very quickly, if I may, indeed. What we think is very important is to change our economic thinking here a little bit on this topic and allow the people who have good quality data to make some money out of this data. So to allow them to monetize their investments over years in building up these translation memories, these dictionaries, as you say, and make them available publicly. So they should be able to earn some money out of every time a technology company uses their data, because it's at the core of this multilingual future, the ownership of this data. So allow them to make money out of the data.
And absolutely. I think that is the challenge here. If you can figure out commercial models where it's economically beneficial for the various players, from the corpora generators to the technology providers, to the commerce and other solution providers. I think we need to create that more rounded ecosystem. So we will hopefully, Sarika, we will pass this on back to Mighty. That's something that we would like to see if we can work not just on any one aspect of it, but look at the whole pipeline and see how to incentivize. Because if the whole pipeline is not available, like some parts are getting addressed, but not the end. At the end, if you don't get end solutions, which is technology providers, only one step in the pipeline. I think the researchers, the ones generating data, the ones getting the technology platforms, the early adopters, the late adopters of those platforms, I think we should look at the whole pipeline and see if we can somehow wire it in. That might help accelerate this process. So with that, I'd like to thank the panel, Aprameya and Wonder, Meer, Shailendra and Vidushi. Fantastic, I think very interesting perspectives. For me, I mean, the Taos world and the Linguistic Society world is very new to me. And so very happy to get a glimpse into your words and like how that fits into what we're trying to do here with Indian languages. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your experiences. Sarika, back to you.
Thank you, Ramesh, for running the session. Came up, of course, data being the prime word, and like you mentioned, it's been a talk in almost every forums in different respects. And we all know that there has been various initiatives which has been taken by the government, which is in pipeline, and we would hope some results and positively coming out, which would be beneficial from the industry perspective as well as for the, I would say, sector's perspective. So we understand there are challenges which the session has taken it forward. There are a few things, and like Ramesh mentioned, there is a whole chain which needs to be looked forward rather than just a piecemeal manner that we fix up one thing and we don't know the end results. And like Jap also mentioned that, yeah, he did share about the his views on the data monetization part. So without commenting on those aspects, I would say as a body, as an industry body, we can definitely put forward whatever the I would say the industry view is that with the government, and definitely leave it a platform for them to further have a discussion and coming out with the solutions which could be beneficial for the sector. So while we are talking about, I mean, as FICCI, of course, we have made submissions on the various I would say the documents and the bill which has come across regarding the data, and it is in consultation with the members, and we are really hoping forward for positive things which is coming forward, which will come out of it. Honorable Secretary has already mentioned about NLTM, and we are aware of the language portal which is being talked about. So we understand that if those things get implemented soon, definitely is going to help the industry I would say industry and academia and everybody, I would say the whole chain in a positive manner. With these thoughts and having a further discussion, taking this discussions, probably obviously we'll take it in the next forums as well. I thank all the panelists who have taken out time for the session. Thank you all for joining in, and thank you, Ramesh, for moderating and finishing the session in time, and of course the chairperson who of course had to leave early, but for sharing her initial thoughts to it. With these, thank you, Vidushi, Aprameya, and Dr. Shailendra. Thank you all.